Good morning, All Hallows students. My name is Demetrius Knox, and I'm here to tell you about the incoming news affecting our school. This just in, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of Mr. Sullivan in the case Sullivan v. U.S. The verdict has issued literally everyone will get detention if their shirts are untucked. Since now our freedom to wear our shirts untucked is taken away from us due to the Supreme Court, I believe it is necessary to go over the history of the Supreme Court and how it operates in the Supreme Court was established in Article 3 of the Constitution. Its first Chief Justice was John Jay. And the court's first docketed case was Van Staphorst v. Maryland. The most influential case in the early years of the Supreme Court was Marbury v. Madison, which established judicial review, which established the executive actions are subjected to review by the judiciary branch. This was the era of the Marshall Court, one of many court types. Through the history of the Supreme Court, such as Warren Court, which was liberal, or Rehnquist Court, which was conservative. The size of the court was initially 6 people. It was established in the Judiciary Act of 1789, and it became 9 people by the Judiciary Act of 1869. There's been many times the court size was adjusted, such as the Judiciary Act of 1866. The number chosen for the Supreme Court only applies to them as there are many other levels to the judiciary system. The court system of the United States first starts with the state courts, and then the cases can be moved to one of the 94 federal district courts. And if your case gets appealed, it goes to the appellate courts. If the decision is still debatable by the courts, or if it is politically decisive topic, the Solicitor General steps in and issues a writ of certiorari, so that the case makes it to the Supreme Court docket, where roughly 80 cases are heard each year. Once the court has a ruling, you essentially can't appeal it. The verdict determines the constitutionality of the cases brought to you by the court. If the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction, such as in cases involving ambassadors and disputes between other states, that case doesn't need to be called up.
The Supreme Court is made up of 8 associate justices and 1 Chief Justice. The Chief Justice presides over oral arguments. They decide what cases get on the docket, which is when the Rule of 4 comes into play. The Rule of 4 is a practice by the Supreme Court that allows any justice to try to get the case that they feel is important on the court's docket. The Rule of 4 is not required by the Constitution, any law, or even the Supreme Court's own published rules. Rather, it was a custom that has been observed since the Supreme Court was given the discretion to hear over its appeals by the Judiciary Act of 1891, Judiciary Act of 1925, and the Supreme Court Case Selections Act of 1988. A Supreme Court meeting could go something like this: the justices all sitting at a table and the Chief Justice at the head of it. One of the justices presents a random case. Just for example's sake, let's say it's Fagan v. 12-2. The justice presents a case because he or she feels like it should be on the docket. They discuss whether or not the case is relevant and basically put it to a vote. And if the justice who presented the case can get 3 other justices to feel the same way, then the case is now on the docket. 4 of the justices need to approve a writ of certiorari before it is issued. The Senate can check the power of the judicial branch by increasing the number of justices, thereby dilating the voice of the justices. All justices, chief and associate, are nominated by the President and approved by a majority of Senate. Justices can serve a lifetime term of good behavior. The reason why this is the case is so that justices are exempt from political pressure. Most justices serve for decades until their demise. This is why some Supreme Court verdicts are very controversial. A great example of the incompetence of the Supreme Court can be seen in Castle Rock v. Gonzalez. Jessica Gonzalez was a mother in Castle Rock, Colorado, who had a restraining order against her husband, Simon. Simon one day decided to kidnap her children, kill them, and then was killed by the police. Ms. Gonzalez called the police and even visited the station, yet they took no action. You would think the Supreme Court would rule in favor of Ms. Gonzalez, but instead, they ruled in favor of the Castle Rock police, as apparently the police do not have the duty to protect you. That is only one of the many controversial Supreme Court rulings in their history. I believe the only way to combat decisions like that as a people is to lobby against the executive appointments. This way, injustices like that don't happen in the future. Plessy v. Ferguson and other infamous Supreme Court rulings occur partially due to the fact that the court is exempt from political pressure. Well, that is all the time we have today. This is your host, Jason Portes.
Demetrius Knox, praying for the United States political system.